All right, let's get right into it. The never-ending war between smartphones has a new front, and Google has just thrown down a massive gauntlet. They're claiming that Android's AI gives it way better protection against scams than the iPhone. But is that really true? Let's dig in. And look, the stakes here are just astronomical. In the last year alone, scammers have managed to swipe over $400 billion from people all over the world using mobile scams. This isn't just a few annoying texts. We're talking about a massive, sophisticated global criminal enterprise. And that really brings up the $1,000,000, or I guess the $400 billion question for every single one of us. You trust your phone with basically your entire life, right? Your money, your private messages, everything. But when a scammer decides to target you, how good is that default protection that's supposed to have your back? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get a handle on the sheer scale of the problem. Then we're going to look at Google's really bold claim and dive into the 3 studies they're using as proof. After that, and this is important, we'll look at the context behind that data, explain how the tech itself actually works, and finally wrap up with what this all means for you. All right, let's kick things off by looking at the threat itself. And seriously, we are way past those old, kind of clumsy texts about a foreign prince needing your bank details. The game has completely changed. So why is that number, that 400 billion, so ridiculously high? Well, it's because the bad guys are using the exact same powerful AI tools that we're all talking about. They're crafting these hyper-realistic, super convincing scams that are tougher to spot than ever before. Our phones have become the #1 frontline in this fight. And it's against this new backdrop that Google is basically drawing a line in the sand. They're making a very public, very bold claim about what Android is capable of. In a recent blog post, Google laid it all out there. They're saying, hey, we're not just playing defense anymore. They claim they're using their AI to get ahead of the threats, to anticipate them and shut them down before they even get to you. It's about prediction, not just reaction. And to back this all up, they drop a number that's, well, it's almost hard to believe. Google is claiming they block over, you ready for this? 10 billion sketchy calls and texts. And that's not per year. That's every single month. That's more than the entire population of the planet. It's a number designed to make you stop and realize the incredible scale of this automated defense system. But of course, a claim that massive needs some serious evidence to back it up, right? So what is Google actually showing us? Well, they're pointing to 3 key pieces of research: a big user survey and a couple of deep dive security assessments. First on the list is a big survey from YouGov. They talked to 5,000 smartphone users, and what people said is pretty revealing. The data showed that Android users were a whopping 58% more likely to say they got 0 scam texts in the week they were asked. Now, if you flip that around and look at who's getting slammed with scams, the gap gets even wider, especially when you put the iPhone head-to-head with Google's own Pixel phone. According to the survey, iPhone users were 136% more likely to say they were getting hit with a heavy volume of scam messages. That's a huge difference. Okay, evidence number 2 comes from a group called Counterpoint Research, and they went deeper. They looked at the actual tech. They identified 10 key spots where AI can really help with security, and their finding was pretty stark. Android uses AI in all 10 of them. iOS, only 2. And the third piece of the puzzle is a technical deep dive from the Leviathan security group. They basically put all the top phones through their paces, and they came to a very similar conclusion. They said Android, and the Google Pixel in particular, gives you the best protection right out of the box, calling out features like call screening as a huge deal. So, case closed, right? I mean, you've got 3 different studies all pointing in the same direction. But hold on. Before we jump to any conclusions, there's a really important piece of context here that we have to talk about. It's a big one. Because anytime you see data that looks this good, you have to ask a simple question. Who paid for all of this? Well, if you dig into the fine print, you find out that, yep, Google paid for 2 of the 3 big studies we just talked about, the YouGov survey and that Leviathan security test. Now, the Counterpoint study was independent, but its release was timed perfectly with Google's big announcement. And just as important, what has Apple said about all this? Absolutely nothing. Crickets. Okay, so keeping that funding in the back of our minds is super important, but let's set it aside for a second and look at the tech itself. How does this all actually work on an Android phone, according to Google? It really boils down to a 1-2 punch. First, you've got proactive blocking. Think of this as a bouncer at a club. It knows the troublemakers and doesn't even let them in the door. Your phone never even rings. Then, for the strangers, the unknown numbers, you have real-time detection. This is where smart AI, living right on your phone, analyzes the conversation for red flags and warns you while it's happening. So for text messages, it's like a 4-step defense. Step 1. Obvious spam gets tossed into a spam folder automatically. You never even have to see it. Step 2. A new number texts you. The AI on your phone, and this is all private, it doesn't go to Google, starts looking for suspicious patterns like in those awful pig butchering scams. Step 3. It finds something, bam, a warning pops right up. And step 4. It spots a sketchy link, it's blocked. You can't even tap on it by accident. And for phone calls, it's a very similar multi-layered approach. First, known spam callers get blocked, your phone stays silent. Second, an unknown number calls. You can use the call screen feature to have Google Assistant answer for you. Third, say you answer yourself. That same private AI is analyzing the conversation in real time for classic scammer talk. And step 4, and this one is a game changer, it can actually stop you from doing something dangerous, like installing a weird app that a scammer is trying to trick you into downloading. So, when you put all of this together, what's the big picture here? This isn't just about some new software update. It feels like we're seeing a real shift, a fundamental change in how the two giants of the phone world think about keeping us safe. It really looks like a whole new battleground is opening up in the big Android versus iOS war. For so long, it was all about who has the best camera or the brightest screen, but now Google is betting big on security. They're trying to make AI-powered protection the next big thing they're known for. They want to change the question from which phone looks cooler to which phone protects you better. And that might just force Apple's hand. Okay, so let's boil it all down. What's the bottom line? First, AI-powered mobile scams are a massive and growing problem for all of us. Second, Google is shouting from the rooftops that their AI gives Android a major advantage. Third, they've got some compelling data, but, and it's a big but, they paid for a lot of it. And finally, this whole thing is a very smart strategic move to make security a major weapon in the fight against Apple. And all this leaves us with one last really big question to think about. As AI gets smarter and smarter, making the scams more convincing and our defenses more powerful, can we really count on our phone's built-in protection to be enough? Or are we just at the start of a brand new arms race where we'll always be playing catch-up?